is PyCharm, which we installed. Right. So we studied some basics yesterday, and I mostly covered what we are going to do and what we are going to learn. Right. So moving forward, right. Let's start off with Python and Selenium concepts. All right. Um, First of all, I'll make a new Python package over here named as um, OOPS. So we'll be starting off with object-oriented programming. OOPS is actually the real background for everything, right? You cannot do anything without learning OOPS. In case of Selenium, or whether it is Selenium with Java or Selenium with Python, anything, right? So moving forward, let me talk about functions. Okay, functions in Python, they are quite different and more, you can say, more innovative than the functions in other languages, right? So if I create a new Python file, suppose the name is hotel booking. Fine. So suppose in this I create a function. To create a function, the command is def. Okay, and suppose I want to book a hotel and I have to make a reservation, right? So how do you do that? And Python, we prefer to keep everything in lowercase, even this class name. Okay, we should always keep it in lowercase. Okay, it's you can say it's a rule or an unwritten rule, right? Every language has its own rule or syntax, and colon represents that the function is starting. So you don't need to put any, braces or something, right? So you can just write over here print making a reservation, right? And you can call this function from here. All right, and you can run this file, run hotel booking, and it will print making a reservation because this function is called. Whatever statements in this function, whatever other statements will not start from this line, you have to be sure about indentation. Okay, in Python, if you're not giving braces, then you have to make sure that you start everything from a little, you can say indented or a little gap. So it becomes the part of the function, right? And suppose you, after making this reservation, right? Suppose you have to pass over different reservation parameters for the reservation, like what is the check-in date for the reservation, right? And what is the check-out date for the reservation, right? What is the name of the customer? All right, and how many adults are there in the reservation, and how many children are there in the reservation, and how many infants, right? So you can pass over these parameters. Okay, and in every programming language, we pass over the parameters like this, that say the check-in date is 2023 February 25, and the checkout date is 2023 February 27th. Okay, and you can put any customer name, Abhijit, and number of adults as say two adults, and children are zero, infants are zero. So you call this function like this, right? And you can print these parameters. Okay, for that, you put the word F over here, that means format, before the double quotes. All right, and uh, out here, uh, you can just a minute, guys, just hold on. Right. So out here, you can uh, print it like this, that in braces, you can print the check-in date. Then in curly braces, you can print the checkout date. In curly braces, you can print the customer name. Right. And like this. Hold on. Okay. And when you run this, so you run it and this will print the data, making a reservation, and this is the data. So a function can be called again and again. It's reusable, right? And every time I call it, I can pass different parameters in the function. Okay, now if you run this, it will put both the details. Now suppose this function apart from printing, it makes a booking and it somehow generates a booking number. So it, like every language, you can return something from a function. Okay, so you can import UUID. UUID is a library which can help you to generate some numbers. Okay, you can write UUID dot um, hold on. You can actually generate a UE booking number through this. Okay, so when you run this, so it will print. This is the its UUID is a unique string, generated on the basis of timestamp. So it's generating a UUID every time, and it's actually sending you back, and the UUIDs are a little different from each other as well. Fine. So you can return UUID. So a function can return something. Okay. So this is my reservation number. Okay. And I'll update this variable over here. So you don't have to declare integer, string, all that stuff over here, right? You can print the reservation number and print the reservation number over here as well. And when you run this, so you get two different reservation IDs. Okay, now this is there in almost every programming language. The syntax is little different. Now in Python, they have done a very smart work. Suppose, hold on, I think Eric has joined in, right? So just a minute. Right. So out here, just a minute, I think. Yeah, hi, welcome, Sumit. Right. So so this is a normal function in Python, and we are calling it again and again with different parameters. Now, in Python, what they have done is they have said that uh, you can call the function, but you can actually call it with different parameters. Like sometimes you know that you are again and again, suppose I'm calling make reservation function again and again for a different person. Okay, so and every time I want to pass the number of children and infants as 0. Okay, I don't want to specify the children and infants every time I call this function. Right. So what you can do is you can give a default values to the input variables. You can write over here children equals to 0 and infants equal to 0. Okay, right. And hold on. So children equal to 0 and infants equal to 0, that means it's a default value. So when you call this function, all right, let me just, okay, and you just mention some name, put the number of children. So you can omit these values because by default, children and infant, this is the default value will be taken as 0. So I can call this function like this, or I can call it when I want to specify the number of say children as 1 and infants I don't want to specify, or I want to specify the number of children as 2 and infants as 1. So I can call the same function. Okay, right. But I'll have to mention in this case, I'll have to mention over here like this children equals to 1, children equals to 2, and infants equals to 1 like this. That's a better syntax. So when you run this, so you see that it prints that over here 0 and but this will take the default value of children and infants. This will take the default value of infant. So if you take any other programming language, like you take example of Java, then you have to make 3 different functions for this. Okay, so in Python, they have told that you can do everything in one function. Okay, right. Anybody with any questions? Anything? Okay. So anyways, let's proceed if you have any no questions, right? So moving ahead, this was one function to make a reservation. And this function had just few parameters. And I can call it again and again and get a reservation number. But you know, you might want to create 1000 reservations. Okay. And you might want to deal with every reservation differently. Okay, so to do that and to manage that, we have, hold on, we have the concept, right, wherein we create objects. All right, so let me just make a new Python file and take it this way. That is a reservation management. Okay, and just a minute. So what we will do is that we will create out here. I never created any class or something. Now we will create a class in Python, right? And I will call the class as say hotel reservation. Right, a class is something which has a scope, right? It will start, it will end. So you have to put a comma, colon, whether it is if statement, whether it is for loop, whether it is a function, whether it is a class, right? You have to put a colon in front of this, right? And hold on, you need to define a constructor in the class. Everything starts with the constructor in object-oriented programming, especially when it comes to Python, right? Everything will start from the constructor of the class. All right, so hold on. There's somebody who's trying to join the meeting. Just a minute, I'm just helping that person join in. Hold on. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So the constructor of a class actually is you need you in other languages like in Java you make the constructor same as the name of the class name, but in Python you define it like this: define double underscore, and you'll already get init over here. All right, the word init double underscore followed by double underscore, this defines the constructor. Self is written over here. Right, I'll tell you what it will be doing, the self word. And suppose in the constructor of this hotel reservation, you send the parameters. Okay, say the check-in date. All right, checkout date and the name of the customer. Suppose I'm sending these three parameters. Fine. And what you will be doing is that you will be writing over here self dot check-in date. Okay, you have to the variables generally in Python we start them with underscore. It's camel casing, or you can decide not to start them with an underscore as well. Right. Hold on, just 2 minutes. Let me write the code and then I'll explain you. Okay, so what we are trying to do, I'll just comment it out. First, we will create the object. We will initialize the object. What is an object you will come to know, and we will update the object or read the object, and then we will update the object. Right, and in this process, it will be very clear to you that basically what the object is all about. Right, so hold on. Right. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to create the object of the class, and I'll call it as Ashish reservation equals to hotel reservation. You call it like this and pass the three parameters which you have defined. Okay, 2023, say hyphen 02 hyphen 23. And okay, so you might get these small warnings over here. You can move the mouse and you can remove the warning signs. Right. And so what happens is that when you do this, an object is created in the memory. Okay. In Python, this object is created and it's got parameters like the check-in date, the checkout date, and the name. Right. And there is one handle which is pointing towards this object. Okay. And we have called that handle as Ashish reservation. Fine. Okay. And similarly, I can create one more reservation like Vishal reservation equals to this, and I can put the name as Vishal. So this becomes another object. Okay, and it will have different three parameters. Right. Okay, but the parameter values for every object would be different. Okay, the variable values, this will have the check-in checkout time like this, and this will have the um, name as this. If I print Vishal reservation dot name, and you can print the variable values like this. If I run this, so it prints Vishal, and if I print the same variable name, Ashish reservation dot name, and if I run this, see that if you print the object, if I write print Ashish reservation, the object reference name, which is this one. Okay, if I print this, you will get some weird value. You will not get the uh, actual value. All right. So what we will do is that uh, we have a function in Python. Now, this is a feature of Python. All right. This is a feature of Python. We have a function to print the objects. If you're printing the object like this, you're just getting a weird value. Okay, if you want to print the objects, we have str function. And that str function you can define in the class. Now, if you talk about this class scope is only this much. Okay, this thing is outside the class and we are running it from here. Okay, I can define a function known as underscore underscore str self. And in this, you can write return. This function will return, say you put format in double quotes, you write like this format. This will return the check-in date. You can write over here self dot check-in date, self dot checkout date, and self dot name. Now, just by defining this object, okay, just by defining this object, I can actually uh, print the details. All right, I can write over, if I run this, hold on, first of all, let me reformat the file and run. You see that I'm able to print the entire object, and you can write over here reservation details, probably something like this. All right, so it's actually printed the entire reservation details of Ashish and Vishal as well. If you want to print some parameter, you can put the dot and print that specific parameter. But if I want to print the entire reservation details, you can print it like this. All right. But generally what happens is, if you talk about these two lines, we don't read the object values like this. Okay, we create the object like we have created two different objects. Okay, and right, and we have initialized the object. Okay, we have created the object, we have initialized it with the help of constructor. We have read the object value. Okay, but you know what? To read the object value, you can write object name dot the parameter you want to read. Okay, and the parameters are defined over here in the constructor, and you have to write this syntax. Self means the current object actually. Now let me talk about self. Self means the current object, and it can help you to initialize the object or to change the values of that object. Okay, so hold on. So what we do is that instead of accessing these parameters directly, okay, we access, I'm sorry, we access these parameters through function names. Okay, for example, I define a function known as cus or define the function known as a name. All right, and I pass a parameter known as self over here. Self means the current object. And I will just write over here a return self dot name. Okay, that is return the name variable of the current object. Right. And I can call it I'll just comment these lines. Okay. And control slash can comment multiple lines. All right. And I will write over here print. So this name self function, this name function will become the part of every object. Okay. This name function will become the part of every object. And if I call it on Ashish reservation dot name, and if I call it on Vishal reservation dot name, and when you run this, right, it's giving me an error. Okay. Well, I don't want to actually go inside this error right now because it's something which I have not actually taught you. Track the most recent str object is not callable, right? Hold on, just hold on. I'll come over to this as well in some time, right? Out here,
Ashish,
just
could
a
it
minute.
be that it's confused about you're calling the variable as name and you're also calling the function as name, so probably it's confused which one you're calling?
Yeah, it is confused about that only, right? If I change it, if I change it to customer underscore name, right? If I do this, because this is overriding of a variable actually, and I haven't taught you about that, right? It will work. It is actually overriding the name. It can be same. There are ways to write the same function name as well, but there are ways in which you can do that. That's known as overriding the function name. But I will tell about that later on. I actually never wanted to go inside this, but still, right. So over here, you can print the name of the customer like this. So what we do, we generally try to access the names with the help of the object, or we try to access the object values with the help of functions like these. We don't directly call them like this. And what if I have to update the name? Okay, I created the object. When I created the object, I put this name. What if I have to update the name? Then I can actually use the same function. Now, this is a very good thing in Python. You can declare a variable, say I'll call it as t. Default value is none. None means that it holds nothing, right? And I can write over here an if statement that if t. What is this? If t, not the brackets, if t, then self dot name equals to t. This basically means it's a simple if statement which says that if t has some value, okay, if there is something inside t, if t is not none basically, then you update the name, the self dot name, the current name of the current object, right, with the value with whatever this is being called. So I can write over here Vishal reservation dot customer name as, and you can send some other customer name, and you can print Vishal reservation dot customer name. So when you run this, So it updates it to Abhijit. So you can create the object, you can call some functions on it, and you can also update the object. To read or update the value of the object, it is using the same function. When I call this function over here, t actually becomes none because I'm not sending t anything inside t. So the default value is none. And if nothing is there in t, so this line never gets executed. The value of name is not updated and it simply returns you the name. But if I'm updating it in this line, suppose I am updating it. So I'm sending Abhijit inside the variable t. Okay, and this line executes over here. Anybody with any questions with this? Anything?
So your if statement, you wrote it all in one line. Is that a better practice than indenting it?
You can do anything. It's just giving me a small warning sign as well. You can do anything.
Okay.
Okay. So this is how objects are created, right? And this is how we update the objects as well. And we read the value. So basically, you need to create the object, you need to initialize the object, and you need to read the object, and you need to update the object. And everything in Selenium, whatever we do it with the help of objects, and we create objects of the internal classes, right? We actually create the object of the internal classes. Now, if I have a function, I'll define a function, build reservation. So in this function, you can do the same thing. You can return the UUID, say. It will somehow, maybe it's putting the value in the database. It is making a reservation, right? And in the end, you can write over here. Hold on, I'll comment this. I will just write Ashish reservation dot build reservation and Vishal reservation dot build reservation, right? And this will generate a reservation number which we'll have to store for every particular booking which we are making. All right. So reservation number one, reservation number two, and I can print reservation one and I can print reservation two. But this is something which we can see. It's printing both the reservation numbers. But now what we can do is this reservation number, I can make it as a part of my object. When we call this constructor for initializing a booking, I will declare a variable reservation number, the default value for which is none. That means even if you are not uh, sending a value for this, then it's okay. All right. And when we make the reservation, okay, we create the objects, and after creating the objects, I'll just comment this as well. After creating the objects, if I print Ashish reservation dot, hold on, I need to write this line self dot reservation number. Okay, if I write over here dot reservation number, so reservation number becomes the part for every object. Okay, reservation number becomes part of every object. And if I am printing Ashish reservation dot reservation number or Vishal reservation dot reservation number, and if I run this, so I will get the output as none because the reservation number is not generated. To generate the reservation number, you will write the command Ashish reservation dot build reservation. You will call this function Vishal reservation dot build reservation, and in this function you can write over here self dot reservation number is this. Okay, right. So this way, when you run this, you get both the numbers. So you don't need to store the reservation numbers in separate variables. If I have to make 1000 reservations, then I simply create 1000 objects, and inside the object, everything would be there. All right. I hope you have got my point. Right. So this way, you are more organized with the concepts of OOPS. With the concept of object-oriented programming, you are more organized. And you have got, look, this is the class, hotel reservation, and there are few functions in this particular reservation. If I declare any variable, say I equals to 100, so this is a local variable. The life and the visibility, the span of this variable is only inside this function. Okay, but uh, but if I declare a variable known as say hotel name, say city hotel, so this is a global variable. This is outside all the functions. Okay, the hotel name variable would be somewhere over here. And hold on, the visibility of this variable would be for all the objects. This would be basically a common variable for all the objects. Okay, if I write over here, print Vishal reservation dot hotel name or Ashish reservation dot hotel name, and you run it, so it will print the same thing. So things which are common for all the objects, you can keep it as a global variable. If you change it, generally the global variables are changed with the class name. The class name is hotel reservation. With the class name, you can change the global variables. You can directly access them like this. And if you print this thing again, then it will be changed. Right. So for the last two, it is printing hotel, country hotel. So basically the global variables in Python, they're quite different than global in Java or something. Right. They are common for all the objects. The object variables are the ones which are sent inside the constructor. The functions can update the variables. Okay. Like build reservation and this, the constructor can initialize them to some value. and we call the functions to update the variables. But everything remains inside one object. Okay, and I'm out here printing the object details. I can also print, say, the uh, self dot reservation number, right? So if I print the entire object, you can print the entire object. You just have to make the double underscore str function, and you need to just return this. So this is a good thing in Python. You can simply print the object, and when you run this, you see that it gives you details of both the reservations. So we create objects in Selenium. We have got internal classes which manage different browsers, which manage Chrome, which, like, let me show you a different workspace. Like you have this Selenium basics. Okay, hold on. Yeah, you have got internal classes like WebDriver.Chrome, WebDriver.Firefox, which are responsible for different browsers. And Chrome options is a different class. So you need to understand the pre-built classes in case of Selenium. In case of Selenium, everything is inbuilt. Okay, there is nothing which you will find that fine, I'm inventing this or something. No. The hotel reservation class which I made was made by me. But in Selenium, you use the classes which are already made by the Selenium guys, and you use the functions which are already there and made by Selenium guys. Okay, so you actually don't have to invent anything, or that you don't have to invent the wheel. Everything will be inbuilt in Selenium. Like to open Chrome, this is the command actually. I'll tell you about the command, but in one line, I'm able to open the Chrome. If I want to take Chrome to some website, then like I'm taking Chrome to google.com, then there is a get function. All right. So anybody with any questions?
So Ashish, we cannot do the extension classes in Python like we can do in C Sharp or some other languages.
You can do it, but it is actually not needed.
Okay.
It is actually not needed. Everything has been presented to you. You just need to understand what, uh, how actually it works.
Okay. Thank you.
So the next thing is that we need to understand Selenium. We had installed Selenium yesterday. I had shown you the command pip install Selenium. Right. So Selenium is there in your machine. So you need to understand these commands and you need to understand how to use them. So we will, I'll talk about it tomorrow in with a fresh launch, right? Because I'll have to take time for that. So the next thing is after this hotel reservation thing, how we can create objects of internal classes in Selenium. Okay, and then we'll move forward.
Ashish, I have one more
Okay.
question. When you're creating a method called build reservation, and that's where you are initializing the value for the UUID, then why do we have
Yeah.
to put it in the constructor as well? Since we are, yeah, in
To
line
tell
39, we are to.
when a constructor is called,
Mhm.
the object is formed at that time. And we define that fine, these are the variables in that object.
Okay.
Okay, so it's better to give the variables of the objects in the constructor and then to update them later on. So it standardizes the code as well. Anybody wanting to know what are the properties of this object, he will just look at the constructor, he will get to know.
Okay. So when when we create the object, we are already initializing the variable, and then we can later on we can populate it with a different function, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
one more
So
question: when you say global variable, is that the same as static in the other languages?
it's basically static only. Little
Static.
different
Okay.
from that, but yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
So you create the object, you initialize the object, you read the object, and you update. While creation only, we have the power to initialize it. Okay, so it's actually create plus initialize in the constructor, and then you can read and update. Okay. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody with any questions? Anything? Okay. Thank you. Thanks.